Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vikas, for that introduction. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Vijay Lilly. I'm a senior technical consultant with IBM Security Software. I'm based out of Mumbai, and I will work with many customers to help them on their zero trust journey, which actually revolves all around data, identity, and ensuring that so simply put, to ensure that the right set of users have right set of accesses to right set of data for the right purpose and through right environment. So all this put together from a right perspective, data, as we know, is an important thing. But just to complement what Vikas mentioned, I like that idea of stand and it is not deliver. It is, for me, it's a stand and deliver. But I like that. The benefit we saw earlier, right? But what I have been hearing is standing is the new smoking. So just make use of this. Whoever has accepted, I had seen like 10, 15 people have accepted on that. Great. No worries. So guys, today's topic is all about this ensuring data privacy, protection, and compliance for modern enterprise. But let us take a step back here and understand why is this topic really important. You know, for some reason, this okay. I will use this. Okay. All right. So for last 12 odd years, IBM has been releasing this report called Data Breach Report, Cost of a Data Breach. And what we observed is there is a 10% jump from what it was there in 2023. But especially what has caused this is due to the data, not only the data breach, because that actually means that what it took for the CISOs, CIOs, or infra team to go back, negotiate, or bring back the data or restore it. But it also includes close to like $2 million only to have a help desk set or to have, you know, the loss of business. All this also accounted for this. So it is not merely what the data cost that you are paying to either retrieve it or to, you know, ensure that it does not go in wrong hands. But there is also a factor of setting up the help desk, loss of business. So that also need to be considered. Second thing is for every data breach that has been observed, out of three, every one was around like a shadow data. Now we had heard the term called shadow IT, but shadow data also exists. Now, what could be a shadow data? It can be a data which is residing within your infrastructure without your knowledge. There can be, and it can be created for, you know, legitimate business purposes, maybe for storing multiple copies at different locations, and even with different locations having multiple usages, like for performance testing, doing a UAT, maybe to do a stress test, or so those kinds of things also calculated to data, which was also captured. So what fraudsters did is, because they knew this is a shadow data which is lying in the network and it is not covered from a monitoring perspective and it is not protected, that's where they actually went ahead and targeted this. So imagine 33% of those attacks were on this kind of shadow data. Okay. And if we go further drill, if I double click further on that, we see that there is a 46% of breaches which were causing personal data. Now, this data was of mixed type. It was of intellectual property. It was of company data, company transactions, but also related to personally identifiable information, personal health information. That actually accounted to 46% of the threat, of the capture that has been done. And this is a quick glimpse of, you know, some of the popular privacy regulations across the globe that has been there. In our region, we were very well aware, like 6 years back, GDPR came in, 7 years back, GDPR came in, and then it is a popular one. But there are CCPA, CCPA, CPRA, and other regions also have their own, even in Asia Pacific region. In 2020, 2023, we had our own DPDP Act, right, which is Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which was came in as an in a draft format. It was circulated. It's a gazetted copy is out, but it's still under consideration. There are few things which are going around, but hopefully we should have it in an act format now. Having said this, what it actually has mentioned is about anything which is in digital format, it has to be brought under this, and there is a heavy penalty. This on the screen, what I have put is the highest penalty which is applicable. So it's not merely the penalty or in terms of monetary. So 250 crore is the maximum that they had highlighted, but there are different types of offenses which call out for different at different levels. Okay, and on those terms, it is important to ensure that this security has been there for the data perspective. And there are two important aspects from DPDP Act. One, obviously, it talks about data protection. It means that data needs to be identified and protected. We will go further into that. But another important aspect is also about consent management. You have to go back. So, as per the law, as per the Act, one has to go back to their existing customers to notify them what attributes of that customer have they stored, what is the purpose that they have stored. They have to go back to the customers and give them this clear visibility, not only for the purposes, but also get their consent that going forward, the customer need to opt in for all those 3 or 5 or 10 consents or 10 purposes that his or her credentials, his or her attributes like email address, phone number, and or anything can be used for. Now, what it also, if I link it back to data protection, it means that if you have to go back to your customer to notify them for what purposes have you stored, you also first need to understand where that has been stored. Right now, we know. Let me talk about few of the data protection challenges. We know that data is a crown jewel. Everyone knows that. Having said this, it is not merely available on premises. It can be cloud. It can be multi-cloud. It can be hybrid cloud as well. Moreover, the form itself is not fixed. It can be a completely RDBMS, a structured one, wherein we know definite way in which this will be kept. But there is also an unstructured data, which is live. Now that unstructured data can be on your S3 bucket, on it can be Windows file shares when it has been residing, and the format of them, right? Those formats can be different altogether. It can be as simple as a Word file wherein the customer information is lying in the form of address details. It can be in the form of Excel sheet where these details of maintained like first name, last name, email address, phone number, Aadhaar card. There can be a different form of image captured of Aadhaar card, our driving license, our passport numbers in an image format. So all this calls out for an unstructured one data. But again, this is also a data that is in digital format. It needs to be discovered. It need to be tagged. It need to be tagged from a consent management perspective. You also need to shorten the footprint and ensure that it is again protected well. Now again, from when we even talk about where the data has been stored, traditional challenges has been once you know where the data is residing, you also need to know who accessed it, when was it accessed, how was it accessed, what time, what execution was done, what was the output, were there any errors, were there any other challenges or any anomalies which were detected. And again, since we know that obviously the next question would be to identify if there are any inherent vulnerabilities for that particular database as a configuration perspective. And while people will be accessing, are they going to misuse that kind of access that they have, the privilege that they have? Okay, so these are the challenges. And again, you also have to report this in a format where it is it can be audited, right, from a compliance perspective. So there should be an assurance. Also, from keeping them data at rest, data in transit, encryption need to be there. Again, if you have an encryption like a native encryption, the encryption keys are again within the database server itself. Again, that makes it not comfortable because that is not the best practice. You need to have a key management solution wherein this all this can be done, right? So from IBM standpoint, what we also see, there are multiple such challenges which were that we talked about. But traditional methods also, uh, everyone is aware that there is a compliance. I talked about DPDP, depending on the industry that you have, maybe insurance industry, then IRDAI comes in, from telecom, TRAI, from banking, RBI. If it's a listed company, obviously SEBI guidelines for from say listing purposes, any reporting to BSE, NSE, or other major indexes, markets need to be done. So there are different compliances which also need to be uh, handled, but also it calls for lot of hours, energy, and resources getting involved, invested in them. So what it means is the less time will be there available to ensure that to protect it. Now, again, from a data exposure perspective, everyone is talking about the Gen AI. Almost, last couple of weeks back, we had a Think event in Mumbai, and we saw that highest rate of adoption from AI, generative AI perspective across the region or across the globe has been there in India. And it is not only the adoption, it is also about experimenting from proper business result perspective. AI is there. So it's like more like it was first, it was like anything plus AI, and now it is going to be like AI plus anything. So we see that AI adoption is more, and especially from generative AI, what it also brings in the inherent risk from large language models, the data that has been input, and what it calls for is the model itself need to be secured. So these are the challenges which are what we see are coming up. There will we know that the encryption is in place. This is good enough. But imagine, somewhere down the like 3 years, 5 years, or 8 years, whenever there is a large computing which is available in the form of a quantum computing, exposing or extracting this encryption or making it very decryptable in will be a fraction of seconds. Now, having said this, what the fraudsters are also are doing is they are taking piecemeal approach of data extraction, and those data extracted, they're keeping it for with themselves, and they will wait for this kind of huge computing to come up and then maybe use it to monetize at a later date. So again, it actually boils down to not only the data exposure that we see right now. Again, going back to the cost of a data breach, it is close to 300 days when this gets discovered by enterprises that their data has actually gone out. Somebody has access to it, they are using it, it is in the black uh, um, dark web, and it is available for sale. But having said this, there are chances that one fine day when this comes up, it may be more than 2 years or so. But actually, it is going to have that data itself, right? So what also we need, the organization need to find out the security posture as well to identify from is your infrastructure ready for quantum? Okay, so that kind of checking whether this is quantum ready or not also need to be done. Finding out data is important, finding out vulnerabilities are important, but also it is important to have a clear view of the security posture. When I say security posture, I mean that not merely having a visibility of where the data is residing, who has accessed it, but making more meaningful output from it. Like, what if you come to know that there is a data, It is lying there for multiple days or years. Nobody bothered to access it. So isn't it that it should be called out to see that whether do you need this copy or this is a replica? Also to find out uh, if the data has been there, it is important, but it is not protected. So that decreases your security posture. So that requires a security posture assessment to be done from a data standpoint. So these are the gaps that we see, and it means that it need to be protected. It's not merely from a structured side. Um, Another graph that I brought in out here, this shows you will be amazed to see that only 15% of the data that you see here in this kind of pink color is actually critical data, which is a business data, right? Which actually meant to be protected in an appropriate manner. All the energies, time should be invested to protect it. Double the size is 33%, right? Even more than double. It is actually a raw data, which is redundant, obsolete, and trivial. So that's where the data comes in, wherein you absolutely do not require it because either it is redundant because some new copy has come in, the older does not need to be maintained. It is obsolete because it is no longer applicable as a part of technology refresh or the new data that has come in, new fields which were added in some application, the older system is no longer required. Or trivial, like the data which was important from before the announcement perspective, public perspective, it was very critical. It had a classification of confidential, but once it is made public, it need not be protected at that level. So you need to have that kind of visibility, what type of data is lying there, and have that so that you can appropriately protect them. And what I see that whenever I talk to many CIOs, CISOs, and I highlight this as a dark data. So this is the 52% data that absolutely unknown. It means that absolutely they have no clue where that data is residing, but it still exists there. Back to a refresher of cost of a data breach. One out of these three breaches were for this shadow data, right? This is a dark data that I'm talking about. So imagine if you know that there is a data which is within your infrastructure in multiple shapes and formats, you can get rid of it and then slowly get on to a level of finding out what is wrong, get rid of it, and then actually focus only on the business critical data. So from a DPDP standpoint, it is actually going to make it easier to also go back and find out what is more relevant data that needs to be protected. Go back and use it for generating DSA or also generating consent management, right? So for for structured and unstructured data, IBM has IBM Security Guardium. Guardium is a family name from data security product line, and it has many such products. But the first product that is very much relevant from DPDP standpoint is IBM Security Discover and Classify. Shortly, we call it as ISDC. Now, ISDC works in 5 phases, and wherein it is actually going to address the concerns that we saw earlier, and it is actually going to help you from DPDP standpoint to begin your journey. So what ISDC does is it monitors network traffic in non-invasive manner. It looks for the transactions which are happening at the network level. It basically identifies those network elements which are important, which are having a transaction with the help of some email, JSON, transaction files. So it identifies those network resources, creates a network map, and then again in out of those network maps, it actually identifies what are the different data types it has actually exchanged, and then actually identify where those sensitive data is has been exchanged between these network topology. So once it identifies, it basically gives you a better visibility of all the repositories which are actually being either accessed or they have been invoked, to either store or retrieve the data. Further, it also gives the chance to go ahead and scan those repositories with the help of predefined connectors, just out of the box connectors. This scanning, first time scanning will be obviously non-invasive and going forward as well. So what it does is it does the scanning on its own, finds out where all these different copies are residing, and also to find, so the beauty here is it is not only structured data but also for unstructured data. So imagine you have, it identifies there are multiple repositories which are there in the form of structured data like DB2, Oracle, MS SQL, MySQL, MongoDB, PostgreSQL, or unstructured data in the form of your S3 bucket, Windows file share, and again different file formats are stored. So it scans them and lists those repositories, what it has identified as those um, uh, elements. Okay. Now, not only identifying them, but also helps you to consolidate those PI at a central location, wherein you will be able to have a clear visibility what information has it gathered. So it has a ratio, it has a success rate of 96% for the first time scanning, and it also gives an opportunity to define your own model, wherein you can say that this is how a typical data would look like if it has been identified in any of the environments, then please consider this. So that actually makes the trustworthiness of that matching pattern. The beauty here is traditional method of doing discovery of databases or data had been there exclusively from regular expressions, but this more not only relies on that kind of pattern, but also looks for anything that you have provided, and the trust on those increases. So the machine learning of ISDC also ensures that the trustworthiness reaches to 99 plus percentages. And having done this, what it actually gives is a better visibility from creating a master catalog, gives you a insight into where that data has been flowing, a data lineage can be achieved. So imagine if you have multiple such resources wherein this type of data has been lying and has been stored, it will also give you an opportunity wherein you can think it to create it from a business context perspective, because that is going to make a lot of difference. Now imagine if you create a business context of your HNI customers from a banking example. So HNI customers, if this particular information has been retrieved, consider them to be as HNI, put them appropriately protected, and then you can see that who has been accessing them. And you can see that if this is a sensitive information of HNIs, nobody should be accessing it. Similarly, it can be from a geographic perspective, like an Indian entity or Indian company, but dealing with European customers. Obviously, then the company has to adhere to GDPR. Now, imagine the attribute of nationality comes in easily. It can put them into a perspective of this is a GDPR customer, how it needs to be handled, who has been accessing, and all those things can be protected. Now, with ISDC, what it does is it continuously does this data discovery, and since it is non-invasive, it keeps looking for all the changes that has happened, and on that, it looks for structured, unstructured, semi-structured data. It's due to machine learning, it actually helps to have create a better data inventory, and the cataloging is done so that it becomes easier to have that look and feel perspective, better visibility, and help you generate DSAR, which is important from a DPDP Act. So DSAR, as we all know, it is data subject access request, wherein any customer can come back to enterprises and ask what data the customer has of himself or herself. Now, in that case, as per DPDP Act, one has to go back, find out where it is residing, create a list, go back to the customer and display that this is all data that I have. As part of DPDP Act, it also entitles customer for right to forget. And right to forget obviously means that any attribute which need to be deleted, no longer required, the customer can simply say that, please go ahead and delete this. Now, imagine if you have this kind of report available with you, it will be very easy to go back and find out where all these repositories has this information and take the corrective action by working with those respective applications. Putting in in a business context perspective, easy to identify and put a business construct. Obviously, when we talk about the scale of implementation, this can be a large scale implementation, as it can be mid-size, a small, mid, or a large size deployment, which can actually happen. And it can absolutely happen for not only multi-site, multi-cloud, but so that's what it will help to address it from petabytes of data, irrespective of its shape and size. Again, having this as a solution is um, it's not a neat nice to have, it's a must have solution now, especially from DPDP Act perspective. But integrations uh, are also important. Merely discovering this information will help you to create a DSAR to generate that effectively, but you also need to protect it appropriately from a structured data perspective. Now, again, this is how typically it looks like. I want to call out one important highlight out here is, since this is from Guardium family, it actually gives a out of the box integration with Guardium. Guardium has a portfolio called Guardium Data Protection, which is one of the features of it is basically to protect the data from point of view of database activity monitoring. Industry term is DAM. Okay, and from ISDC perspective, what helps it to improve the accuracy of inventory identification, just out of the box identification. So for even for the first time when it runs, it has an accuracy of 96% with machine learning and continuous learning, which has been provided. So these are the bubbles which are there on from the console. But basically, it means that over a period of time, it can reach to 99 plus percentage as well. Okay. Return on investment are real quick because you actually get to see it very quickly. And ease of deployment, obviously, it can, we understand that majority are the customers are now hybrid cloud, or they can be like 40% on premises and 60% on cloud. But even in those kinds of scenario, it can easily be done and identified. From Guardian family perspective, the challenges what we had seen earlier is more about not only finding out but protecting them as well. But it becomes important when the retention of large chunks of data observed from a data activity monitoring standpoint, DAM perspective has been there as a regulatory requirement. If you want to retain those heavy storage to be maintained, then Guardium Insights is the solution, which actually helps you address this. And Guardium Insights does this for a not only the longer duration. So what also helps is, if you have a lot of data from a historical perspective, finding out anomalies and creating a risk posture from user perspective, their respective connections, where they have access, time of day, day of the week, or week of the month when they had actually accessed it, will help Guardium to create a risk profile of that user effectively. So Guardium Insights can be deployed on premises. It is also available as a service. We call it GIaaS. So it can be used. The beauty here is it can be integrated with ISDC. Right. From now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is more from Guardium Data Protection, shortly GDP. So Guardium data protection works in um, five phases. The first phase is also about discover, wherein the discovery of sensitive information in a structured format need to be done. But even before that, it also discovers all the databases which you have, database instances, what sensitive data is stored within them. It helps you identify with the help of out of the box regular expressions, or you can create your own regular expressions. From India standpoint, PAN card, Aadhaar card, driving licenses are unique. So again, they are just out of the box available, and we can find that. It also helps you to, after identification of sensitive data, it helps to have a classification also done. Sorry. It also helps to, it also helps to, sorry for the distraction. It also helps to, so the next step is also about protecting. It means that once the identification has been there and we know that where the sensitive data has been residing, we can define who can access that sensitive information and manage it better. So create policies in GDP to one identified databases, uh, uh, who has access, what did they access exactly, when did they access, is there any other pattern which can actually be found out. So just out of the box policies are available, the rules are there and it can be applied. It has this analytics piece, and it actually analyzes, so over a period of time, how the users have been accessing, the DBS has been accessing, and is there any anomaly which has been observed. So imagine somebody has been accessing traditionally from Monday to Friday, 9 to 6, and all of a sudden on Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, the user logged in. And this was the first time it was observed that user had logged in. He has logged in, accessing this database for the first time. And not only that, there is a heavy chunk of data which has been exported. Now, can this be a case of data exfiltration because a lot of data has been exported? Imagine if for that user who has been attempting for the first time, multiple login failures appeared. Okay. And if multiple login failures appeared, it also means that it can be a case that somebody is trying to uh, do an account taker just to see that whether he or she can access that data or those with those credentials. So that's the context that need to be there, put in. So from Guardium data protection, the analytics piece comes in here in place, wherein identifies and generates profiles of those users. And there are 14 such categories of threats which are identified, which can be there. So like cross-site scripting, account takeover, denial of service, they can also be identified, and they can be categorized. So what it entitles, from a analyst perspective, is to identify, are there any insider, is there any insider threats, who are the risky users, who are the risky um, databases. So Guardium again has a component of vulnerability assessment, which is exclusively from database perspective. So databases inherently also has vulnerabilities. Now imagine there is a vulnerability of a database which not has been mitigated yet. There is no immediate plan to do that, or there may be a plan to patch it, but there will be a scenario wherein somebody knows that it is vulnerable, and that person is actually trying to exploit that vulnerability. So having that insight of that database itself is vulnerable and somebody has actually trying to access it will make it more compelling for that user to be observed. You can put that user in an observation mode to see that what he or she may be intending to do it. So that's where the analysis comes in place. Obviously, the responses should be there to these threats in real time. We can forward it to an IBM QRadar or any other SIEM to have that integration done, and it can be integrated with the SOAR as well. Advantage of integration of IBM Guardium with IBM QRadar is basically there is a two-way integration available, not only one way of communication from Guardium to QRadar. QRadar, since it's an SIM and it has a better visibility from multiple angles, it can also inform back to Guardian like, hey, I have seen that a user who has failed attempts for multiple times, and from his account, we see that he is also trying to access a particular database. So why don't you go ahead and block that? So that block policy can actually be triggered back from IBM QRadar to IBM Guardium. Okay. And again, from compliance perspective, so there are just out of the box 600 plus reports which are available. They're easy to compile, easy to use. And we also have something from ready to go compliance tools. So like GDPR, CCPA, you can simply apply it and see that whether the database standpoint, are these compliant? Is there anything which is missing? So this gives you a better visibility from compliance standpoint. You can create your own. So we have customers who are actually using it from India standpoint to discover Aadhaar card, the sensitive information like Aadhaar card, PAN card, okay. And having this insight gives them easy to understand, easy to share the compliances reports, maybe for internal or external auditors, wherein they can simply say that I have a report which easily shows me where this information has been residing, irrespective of, so imagine PAN card has been there, it has a fixed format, but it has been stored in multiple such databases. Generating a report is easier, or even having a combination of Aadhaar card, PAN card has been stored in a different format altogether. Finding that is going to be easier. There are reports which are more from audit perspective: who accessed, when did they access, is there any anomaly which were reported, are there any users which were put for observation, put in blocking mode. So all that information insight can be given as part of this compliance reports. In a nutshell, this is how shortly Guardium portfolio is there. So I talked more about this for Guardium data protection, which is for Guardium, which is there from a DAM perspective. It has a wide range of databases which are just out of the box supported. Those databases can be popular like DB2, Oracle, MS SQL, MySQL, or can be very rare like a CouchDB or MariaDB or any other database which may be having a community edition as well. So there is a wide range of databases which are supported and which can be easily found out. I touch base upon exclusively on this DPDP perspective, discover and classify, which is more to do with identification of structured data with the help of combination of ISDC and Guardium data protection. So these two blocks, the first one and the bottom one, you will be able to find out what is missing from a configuration perspective and what to easily identify the risk score at at an organizational level. Guardium has a portfolio from Guardium data encryption to help. This helps you to protect encrypting the databases at column level, at file and folder level. Guardium vulnerability assessment, which is bundled with Guardium data protection, it works in conjunction to give an insight of vulnerabilities which were reported. Guardium Guardium data risk manager, again, it's a bundled one with GDP. And lastly, Guardium Key Lifecycle Manager, GKLM, is used for managing those keys, which are used either for encryption perspective, maybe from an LTO or for a database. So that's where the GKLM comes in handy. And so this is how a typical deployment looks like. So irrespective of its data store, data type, we have different types of connectors which are available. They can be based on it can be agent based, it can be agentless also. So, or it can be API streaming that we can use. So irrespective of its shape and size, we will be able to monitor it. Integration of Guardium with QRadar or any SIM solution is available. And in case it's a large deployment that needs to be protected, you have to have a better analytics for a larger chunk of data. Guardium Insights is the way to go. Guardium Insights is also available as part of SaaS, GIAS, we call it shortly, and it has and on top of it, the AI and ML works at different levels uh, on these. So that's all that I had planned for today. And quick time check, I think I covered it on the same time.